Hey everybody, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're exploring something pretty interesting.
Yeah.
The power of a well-placed pause.
Mm.
We're going to be looking at some insights from the world of slam poetry.
Ah, yes, slam poetry.
That's right.
Very dramatic.
It is. But you know what?
Right.
Even if you're not a poet,
Okay.
the tricks we're talking about today,
Yeah,
they apply to anyone who wants to communicate better.
absolutely. Whether you're giving a presentation or just having a casual conversation.
Yeah, like even just talking to your kids.
Exactly.
I think we've all been there,
Oh, yeah.
where you're trying to get your point across,
Right.
and you just need a little extra oomph.
It's about making an impact.
Okay, so speaking of impact,
Yes.
our source material uses this analogy of a broken tulip pause.
Okay.
Have you heard of this?
I have heard of this.
So apparently it's inspired by tulip mania
Ah, tulip mania.
back in the 17th century.
Right back when people were trading tulip bulbs.
Like they were going out of style.
Like crazy. I mean, some of them were worth more than houses.
It's wild. I can't even imagine.
Talk about a bubble.
Yeah, a bubble just waiting to burst.
And burst. It did.
It did.
Which is actually a great way to think about the power of a pause.
Oh, really?
Because think about it.
I mean,
1 minute,
yeah.
you've got this captive audience.
Right, hanging on your every word.
But then
So-
silence.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
That sudden shift.
It can be really powerful.
Exactly. It's like that moment when the tulip market crashed.
Everything changes in an instant.
Ooh.
So our source material goes to this really vivid description
Oh, yeah.
of 17th century Amsterdam.
I love a good historical deep dive.
Me too. And they paint this picture of this crowded, smoky room full of these merchants just sweating over these tulip bulbs.
Trying to get rich quick.
Right. And some
Yeah.
of these bulbs
Yeah.
are worth more than a house.
It's mind-boggling, isn't it?
It really is. Like, what were they thinking?
Well, it's that classic speculative mania.
Yeah.
People get caught up in the frenzy
Right.
and they lose sight of reality.
Like, they forget that a tulip is just a flower.
At the end of the day, it's like a speaker who rambles on and on,
Oh, yeah? I've heard a few of those.
and they lose their audience completely.
Because they're not paying attention to the flow
The ebb and flow.
and the impact of...
Their words.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection here.
Good. I'm glad.
So how does this crash moment actually relate to storytelling?
Well, let's go back to that image of the speaker.
Okay.
They've just delivered this killer line.
Right, something that totally hooks the audience.
Exactly. But then, instead of rushing on,
Uh-huh.
they do something unexpected.
What do?
They pause.
Oh, they just stop talking.
They stop talking completely.
And for how long?
For longer than what feels comfortable.
Ooh. I could practically feel the tension building.
Exactly. And that's the point.
Yeah.
That discomfort,
Yeah.
it forces the audience to lean in.
So they're really paying attention now,
They have to be. They're on the edge of their seats.
waiting for the speaker to break the silence.
Right. And then finally, the speaker continues.
They start talking again.
But here's the twist.
Okay, what's the twist?
It's a whisper,
Wow. So they go from this big, impactful line
right?
to complete silence
Yeah.
to a whisper.
Precisely. It's like a roller coaster of emotions.
So you're saying a well-placed pause
Yes.
can be just as dramatic as like a Shakespearean death scene.
In a way, yes.
That's pretty amazing.
It's all about creating that dramatic arc.
The rise and fall.
Exactly. And
Very-
keeping the audience engaged.
Okay, but let's be real.
Okay.
Can I really use this in like my next PowerPoint presentation?
Why not?
I don't know, my boss might think I've lost it.
Don't underestimate the power of a pause,
Even in the corporate world.
especially in the corporate world.
Really?
Absolutely. Think about it.
Okay.
You're presenting your quarterly report, and you're about to reveal those amazing sales figures
Okay.
right before you
Yeah.
do silence.
Just stop talking?
For a beat.
Ooh, that's good.
Right. Let it hang there.
I like it.
It creates anticipation.
It does. And then boom, you hit it with the numbers.
Exactly. It makes your message hit harder.
So you're saying I can create boardroom drama with silence.
Precisely.
I never thought of it that way.
It's all about applying these techniques
Wow.
in different contexts.
So it's not just about slam poetry.
Not at all. It's a universal principle.
So like even when I'm trying to convince my kid to eat their vegetables.
Even then, a well-timed pause can work wonders.
This is blowing my mind.
Good. I like it when minds are blown.
It's like you're taking the audience on a little emotional roller coaster.
Exactly. A roller coaster of emotions.
Speaking of roller coasters,
Yeah.
didn't some famous people use this pause technique?
Oh, absolutely. Think about Barack Obama.
Okay, yeah, he was a great speaker.
He was a master of the pause.
Right. He would use it to emphasize key points.
He would let the silence really sink in.
And it made his speeches so much more impactful.
Exactly.
It's like he was wielding silence like a Jedi Master.
I love that analogy, a Jedi Master of silence.
Knowing when to strike with words and when to let the silence speak for itself.
Precisely. It's about understanding that silence.
Yeah.
It's not just an absence of sound. It's a tool.
A tool to be used wisely.
Exactly.
So it's not about being quiet.
Right.
It's about being strategic.
Strategic silence.
I like that. It's like silence with a purpose.
Exactly. Not just awkward crickets chirping.
So you're saying sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all.
Sometimes, yes.
Mind blown.
Good. Another mind blown.
It's all about being mindful.
Yes.
And intentional with those silences.
Giving your audience space to absorb your message.
So are you saying that silence can actually be more powerful than words?
In some cases, absolutely. It's about understanding that silence isn't just empty space.
It's more than that.
It's where meaning and emotion reside.
Wow.
And that, my friend, is a lesson that goes far beyond slam poetry.
So it applies to every aspect of communication.
To life itself, really.
Okay, so we've got this broken tulip pause.
Yes.
Which is like the tulip market crashing.
Right.
But how does that analogy really work?
Right.
What makes it so powerful?
Think about that moment when the tulip bubble burst.
Okay.
1 minute, people thought they were rich.
Right. They had all these valuable tulips.
And the next minute, they were left with nothing.
Worthless bulbs.
Worthless bulbs. It was sudden, dramatic, and it changed lives.
And that's what the broken tulip pause is trying to capture.
Exactly. It's about creating that same kind of impact.
So it's not just about the silence itself.
No.
It's about the contrast.
Yes.
Between the silence and what comes before and after.
Precisely. It's like a sonic 1-2 punch.
I like that. A sonic 1-2 punch.
It keeps the audience guessing.
Wow. So silence can be loud.
It can be very loud.
This is changing how I think about communication.
Good. That's what we're here for.
It's like composing music.
Oh, I like that.
But with words and silence.
Words and silence working together.
Exactly.
It's about creating an experience.
More than just stringing words together.
Absolutely. Using your voice, your body language, and those strategic silences.
To create something that really resonates.
Exactly.
And speaking of resonating.
Yes.
Our source actually recommends a book.
Oh, they do?
Yeah, for anyone who wants to level up their communication game.
I'm always looking for good book recommendations.
Me too.
Yeah.
And this one is called Poetry Master Poesy Craft in 7 Tagen.
That's a mouthful.
I know. But it sounds pretty interesting.
It does. I'm intrigued.
It's full of practical tips.
Oh, good.
On how to command a stage.
Yeah.
Control your voice.
Okay.
Really master your performance.
Sounds very useful.
Yeah, even if you're not planning on becoming a slam poet.
Right.
The techniques in this book.
Yeah.
They can help you in any kind of communication.
Yeah.
Where you want to make an impact.
Whether you're giving a presentation or just trying to nail that job interview.
It's all about using your voice effectively.
And your silences.
So after all this talk about strategic silence.
Yes.
What stood out to you the most?
That's a good question.
What's that one thing that will stick with you?
You know what really struck me?
Yeah.
Is that silence isn't just an absence of sound.
Right. It's more than that.
It's a powerful tool.
It's a tool in itself.
Exactly. And it's something we often overlook.
We do. We're so used to filling every silence with noise.
Right. We forget to just be quiet.
And listen.
Exactly.
I think that's a really important takeaway.
It is. It's like the ultimate Jedi mind trick.
Oh,
using the force of silence to move your audience.
That's brilliant.
Okay. I think it's time for us to embrace a little silence ourselves.
I agree.
Let our listeners process all this brilliance.
Yes, but before we do...
I'll leave you with a question.
Ooh, a cliffhanger.
Yes, a cliffhanger. How can you use the power of the pause to make your communication more impactful and memorable?
That's a good one. And remember, if you want to go full-on communication ninja...
Yes.
Check out Poetry Master Prosy Craft in 7 Tagen.
It's a treasure trove of wisdom.
For anyone who wants to master the art of performance.
Absolutely.
All right, folks. That's a wrap for part 1 of our deep dive into the power of the pause.
Don't go anywhere.
We'll be back with part 2, where we'll be dissecting even more mind-blowing techniques from the world of slam poetry.
Stay tuned.
Until then, remember, sometimes the most eloquent thing you can say is...
Is what?
Nothing at all.
Ooh, I like that. Very profound.
This is Host Speaker signing off.
And I'm Expert Speaker.
Stay curious, keep learning, and don't be afraid to embrace the power of Datus. You guessed it. Silence.
Silence. You know, as we've been talking about this whole pause thing,
Yeah.
I keep thinking about that description of that 17th century Amsterdam trading room.
Oh, yeah, with all the tulip mania.
Right. All those merchants packed in there like sardines.
That's kind of crazy.
And the source material, it really goes all in
Yeah, it does.
on the sensory detail.
You can practically smell the
what?
The burnt wood and the damp fabric.
Yeah, it's like you're right there in the room with them.
It's so vivid.
It is.
But it's not just about setting the scene.
No.
It's like those details are doing something else too.
What do you mean?
Well, they're building this sense of anticipation.
I see.
Like something big is about to happen.
Like a storm is brewing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it makes you, the listener, slow down and pay attention.
Because you know something's coming.
You can feel it in the air.
And that's kind of like a pause, isn't it?
Oh, interesting. How so?
It creates a space for the listener to get drawn in.
To the story, to that pre-crash tension.
Exactly. And that's what's so powerful about silence.
It can be just as potent as sound.
If not more so.
It's all about using it strategically. So are you saying, like, I should just stare silently at the barista when they ask for my order?
Maybe not that extreme.
Okay.
But you get the idea.
I think so.
It's about being more aware of those silences in our communication.
So it doesn't always have to be these big, dramatic pauses.
Right. It can be more subtle.
Okay, like what?
Like just a beat of silence after you make a point.
To let it sink in.
Exactly. Or a moment of quiet.
Yeah.
To build a connection with someone.
So like instead of filling every silence with small talk?
Right. Just be comfortable with the quiet.
I like that.
It can be very powerful.
Okay, so we're not talking about awkward silences.
No, not at all.
Or like intentional silences.
Strategic silence.
Right, silent with a purpose.
Exactly.
Not just crickets chirping.
No crickets.
Okay, good, because I hate crickets.
Oh, too.
So basically it's about knowing when to hold back.
And when to let the silence speak for itself.
Ooh, that's good.
I thought so.
Because silence can be expressive too.
Oh, absolutely.
It can convey so much.
Like what?
Like thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
Empathy. Even anger.
Yes. Think about that. I'm silently judging you.
Oh, yeah. I know that look.
We all do.
It speaks volumes.
Without seeing a word.
It's a whole language we often overlook.
Right. We're so focused on words.
We forget about the power of the unsaid.
Exactly. And even our source material.
Yeah.
It uses silence.
Really? How?
Well, not literally.
Okay.
But the way it describes that trading room with all those sensory details, it's like it's creating a kind of silence.
The silence of anticipation.
Yes. Like the calm before the storm.
I get it. So it's all connected.
It is. The sensory details, the anticipation, the silence.
They all work together.
To create a powerful effect.
So that broken tulip analogy.
Yeah.
It's not just random.
No, it's very deliberate.
It's about capturing that suddenness.
The
power of a well-placed pause.
Exactly. It's a reminder that silence can be just as transformative as any grand gesture.
Okay, so we've talked about silence in storytelling.
Yes.
In everyday conversations. Even in those high-stakes situations.
Like job interviews.
Or hostage negotiations.
Yeah, right.
But what about relationships?
Ooh, interesting question.
Can we use these techniques to, like, avoid couples therapy?
Well, I don't know about that.
Okay.
But I do think that sometimes the best way to connect with someone is to just be present with them in silence.
You mean like, just be there.
Yes.
Without feeling the need to fill the space.
Right.
With awkward small talk.
Exactly. Sometimes the most meaningful conversations happen in the spaces between the words.
Wow, that's deep.
I know, right?
It's like silence becomes this shared space.
Yes, a place where you can connect.
Without accidentally starting World War III.
Exactly. And it's something we often forget.
We do. We're so used to filling every moment with noise.
Yeah. Right. We forget the power of just being present.
So maybe the real takeaway here
Yeah.
is not just mastering the pause.
No.
But rediscovering the art of silence itself.
Beautifully put. It's about finding that balance.
Between speaking and listening.
Yes.
Between noise and silence.
And understanding that both are essential.
For real communication.
Oh, so meaningful life.
You know, this whole conversation keeps making me think about that line from the source material.
Which one?
You can be the best storyteller in the world, but if you don't master your pauses, you're dead.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's a bit dramatic, don't you think?
A little bit, but it gets the point across.
It does. Even the most brilliant words fall flat without the right pacing.
An emphasis.
It's like a musician who hits all the right notes,
yeah,
but has zero sense of rhythm.
It's just noise.
Exactly. And that's what makes the broken tulip pause so powerful.
It reminds us that silence is an essential part of the music of communication.
And like any instrument, you have to master it to really captivate your audience.
Absolutely. It takes practice and intention.
So we've talked about silence in storytelling, everyday conversations, even relationship therapy.
It's everywhere.
It is. But let's circle back to slam poetry for a sec.
Okay.
What are some other ways poets use silence to blow the audience's minds?
Well, one technique that comes to mind is the use of caesura.
Caesura? What's that?
It's basically a pause
Okay.
that happens within a line of poetry.
So not just at the end of a sentence.
Right. It's like interrupting yourself mid-thought.
Oh, interesting.
And it can be really effective
For what?
for creating drama or suspense.
Okay.
Or for highlighting a specific word or phrase.
Like you really want the audience to pay attention to that one word.
Exactly. It's like savoring each bite of a delicious meal.
I like that analogy.
It's about slowing down and appreciating the nuances.
So in slam poetry,
Yeah.
where the energy is already so high,
Right.
this sudden silence,
Yes.
it must be really effective.
No, it is. It's like everything comes to a screeching halt.
And everyone's like, whoa, what's going to happen next?
Exactly. It's all about playing with those dynamics.
Between sound and silence.
Words and the spaces between them.
And remembering that silence can be just as expressive as words.
Absolutely. You know, as we've been talking about all these techniques, I've realized they all come back to this idea of control.
Control.
Yes. The broken tulip, pause, the use of caesura, even just being comfortable with silence.
Okay.
It's all about being in charge of your communication.
You're the one who decides.
Exactly. You decide when to speak and when to let the silence take over.
It's like you're conducting an orchestra.
Oh, I love that.
But instead of instruments, you're wielding words and silence.
That's a perfect analogy. It really captures the precision and intentionality.
That it takes to be a master communicator.
Yes. And it reminds us that even the simplest tools like silence can be incredibly powerful.
When used with skill and finesse.
Exactly.
You know, this whole conversation has really opened my eyes.
To what?
To how much we underestimate the power of silence.
We do. We're so bombarded with noise
All the time.
that we forget to just be quiet and listen.
But it's in those quiet moments that we often make the most meaningful connections.
With ourselves and with others.
It's like we need to retrain our ears.
To what?
To hear the music of silence.
I love that. To appreciate the beauty of a language that doesn't need words.
Exactly. And maybe if we can all embrace that power.
The power of silence.
Yeah.
What do you think will happen?
I think we can create a more mindful and meaningful way of communicating.
I agree. It's about slowing down, paying attention, and really listening.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
The broken tulip, pauses, the power of silence in different contexts, even the magic of caesura.
And let's not forget the importance of being okay with a little quiet time.
Yes. So before we move on, what's one practical tip
Okay.
our listeners can take away?
In this conversation.
Yeah, and actually use in their own lives.
That's a great question.
I try.
Well, I think if I had to choose one, it would be this. Don't be afraid of silence.
Don't be afraid of silence.
Embrace it.
Embrace the silence.
Make it work for you.
I like that.
Whether you're giving a presentation, having a tough conversation, or just taking a moment for yourself, remember that silence can be your secret weapon.
Your secret weapon.
Exactly.
So sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is absolutely nothing.
Well said.
And on that note,
I
think it's time for us to embrace a little silence ourselves.
I agree.
Let our listeners ponder these ideas a bit further.
Yes. Let them marinate in the silence.
All right, folks, that's it for part 2 of our deep dive into the amazing world of silence.
But don't worry.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with part 3.
We will.
Where we'll uncover even more secrets.
Oh, yes.
From the realm of slam poetry and the art of communication.
Stay tuned.
Until then, remember. The power of silence is always there.
Always there.
Waiting for you to tap into it.
We'll see you soon.
And we're back for the final act of our deep dive into the power of the pause.
That's right, back for more silence.
You know, it's amazing how much we've learned.
It is. About something that's essentially nothing.
I know, right? It's like we've entered this secret world.
A world of silence.
Where everything we thought we knew about communication is turned upside down.
I like that. It's like the Matrix, but for words.
Exactly. So before we took a break to contemplate the void.
The void of silence.
We were talking about how strategic silence can really shake things up.
In a good way.
Right. Whether you're giving a killer presentation.
Or navigating a tricky conversation.
Or even just trying to win an argument with your cat.
A well-placed pause can work wonders with pets, too.
You know, it's funny you should mention that.
Why? What were you thinking?
I was just thinking about that description from our source material.
You mean that chaotic 17th century Amsterdam trading room?
Yeah, that's the one. It's like you can practically smell the fear and desperation.
Yeah. And hear the echoes of fortunes being lost.
It's so intense.
Yeah.
And it really sets the stage for that dramatic crash.
Which is, of course, a perfect analogy for the broken tulip pause.
Right. Using silence to create that same sense of anticipation and disruption.
Like a controlled explosion of tension.
I'm still a little fuzzy on the details.
Oh, okay, no problem.
Can you break it down one more time for those of us in the cheap seats?
Absolutely. So the first step is to deliver a powerful line.
Something that really grabs the audience's attention.
Exactly. Like a verbal punch to the gut.
Ooh.
But then, instead of rushing on to the next thing, you hit the brakes. Hard.
Silence.
And not just any silence.
Okay, what kind of silence?
It can be long enough.
Long enough for what?
To make people a little uncomfortable.
Ooh, so they start to squirm.
Exactly. They're hooked now. They can't look away.
Because they're waiting for you to break the silence.
Right. And then finally, when the tension is almost unbearable, you continue, but in a whisper.
A whisper. So you go from this big dramatic line
to
total silence.
Exactly.
Or a whisper.
It's a roller coaster of emotions.
It is. And it forces the audience to lean in.
They have to really listen now.
Because they don't want to miss a single word.
It's like you're sharing a secret.
A secret only they can hear.
Precisely. And that's what makes this technique so powerful.
It creates a connection.
An intimacy.
It's like you're drawing them into your world.
Exactly. And you're doing it with silence.
Wow. Who knew silence could be so manipulative?
It's all about knowing how to use it.
So it's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it.
I mean, when you don't say anything at all.
It's about creating an experience.
An experience that goes beyond words.
This is blowing my mind again.
Good. It's a big mind you've got there.
You know, thinking about this broken tulip pause.
Yeah.
It's like a metaphor for life itself.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, life is full of these ups and downs.
It is.
These moments of anticipation and disruption.
Like a roller coaster ride?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels like everything just stops.
Like the world is holding its breath.
Yes. And then, bam, something new and unexpected happens.
And it changes everything.
And it's those moments that often lead to the most growth and transformation.
That's a beautiful way to look at it.
It's like we need those moments of disruption.
To shake things up.
To force us to see the world in a new way.
Maybe that's why we're so drawn to stories.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
Well, stories often mirror those same rhythms of life.
The highs and lows, the twists and turns.
And the silences in between.
So maybe that's part of what makes slam poetry so captivating.
What do you mean?
Well, it's not just about the words.
No.
It's about the way those words are punctuated by silence.
The way the poet uses those pauses to create tension and release.
It's like a reflection of life itself.
That's a beautiful insight.
So maybe the real lesson here is that whether we're performing a poem or just having a conversation.
Or just living our lives.
The key to really connecting with others is what?
Is to embrace the power of silence.
To use it intentionally.
To create those moments of shared understanding.
And transformation.
I love that. So we've talked about a lot today.
We have.
The broken tulip. Pause. The power of silence in different contexts. The magic of Sashura.
It's been a whirlwind tour of the world of silence.
It has. But before we go,
yes,
what's one final thought you want to leave our listeners with?
How about this? Don't be afraid of the silences in your life.
Don't be afraid of the silence.
Embrace them.
Embrace the silence.
Explore them.
Explore the silence.
You might be surprised by what you find.
I love that. And if you're looking for more guidance on how to navigate that world in silence, and tap into the power of your voice,
then I highly recommend checking out
what?
Poetry Master, Poesycraft, and 7 Taken.
It's a fantastic resource for anyone who wants to master the art of communication.
Absolutely. It's full of practical tips and exercises.
So go forth and embrace the power of the pause.
Yes. Use those pauses wisely.
Yeah.
This is Host Speaker signing off.
And this is Expert Speaker saying goodbye.
Stay curious, keep learning, and don't be afraid of a little silence. Peace out.